Um, my name is Monty Ayub, but everybody calls me Master Mo.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I've been known by for years. Um, been a teacher and a martial arts instructor and a public speaker, as well as running a public speaking company and a radio station as well.
Amazing. And you've got a kid currently in education.
Yeah,
And was she 14?
yeah.
And what would you say, because that's kind of GCSE year, am I right?
No, not yet.
Sorry?
Not yet.
But she's coming up to that GCSE.
She's coming up to, yeah, yeah.
So if we kind of start it back and think about primary school or secondary school, would you say that there are any challenges that your child faced as a black girl growing up in the education system?
Okay, let me start off by, I'm a teacher myself.
Yeah.
I've been a teacher, so I reckon I know how the system and the education system works.
Yeah.
And the challenges that she faced, I faced it before she did.
Yeah.
So I tried to rectify and be proactive to all those challenges that she would face.
Amazing. Yeah.
She had a problem at school.
Right.
And the problem is that, to put it bluntly,
Yeah.
she was too intelligent for her teachers.
Yeah, we've heard this one time and time again, and it's true.
And they penalized her for it, and so I had to be there to rectify those mistakes.
Yes.
By the teachers. I mean, a classic example was, so a couple of small stories. I mean, she was sitting in class, and some other children threw some pens down on the floor. And she turned around and the teacher told her to pick it up. So she turned around and said, I didn't throw them down, you know? So the teacher said, no, you pick them up. So she said, why don't you ask the person who threw them down to pick it up?
Yeah.
And they thought she was being rude.
Yeah.
So she turned around and said, look, I'll tell you who did it. And so she gave the child's name.
Yeah.
You know, and the teacher turned around and told her to get out of class.
Wow. And when we think about these incidences, because they're obviously not isolated, what do you feel like needs to change in order for black people's behavior to be read as it was intended?
Well, look, there's
principled, because your child obviously has principles. So that's
a couple of things. Yeah, there's a couple of things wrong with the educational system. One, the teachers' training do not train teachers how to identify cultural identities.
Yeah.
And 95% of the let's encompass the white teachers.
Yeah.
Either they don't want to do that or they feel they don't need to do it.
Okay.
And then they use the authority as their backdrop.
Yeah, I understand that.
So that's the issue. You know, this will keep repeating itself over and over again. I did coming slightly forward, I did a program.
Yeah.
I did a debate a few months back. Should there be black schools only? Black schools run for black schools.
Interesting. Yeah.
And the debate went on to say that no, there shouldn't be.
Okay.
Because it's not the black children that need the teaching, it's the white
teachers
that need the
establishment. Yeah.
That need the teaching. So a lot of the focus all the time gets turned back to that we need to change, when it's not us that need to change, it's them that need to change.
Exactly. So we kind of need to change the onus. And would you say that your child was aware that it was a racially motivated situation that she kept on finding herself in?
Well, I've kind of taught her to free think herself.
Yes.
And she doesn't see it as a racial motivation issue.
Right.
But later on in life, you know, when other incidences happened, then she starts realizing that there is a big racial narrative that's happening, that's trending.
Yes. And so, do you think that, like, how do you communicate, or what do you think is the best way to communicate with your child about incidents like that? Like, you've mentioned that you like the idea of having that kind of free thinking, but at what stage are you able to say to your child, like, actually, I think this completely belongs to a narrative that existed long before you were here?
Well, number one is to make sure that your child has a good grounding in history,
Yes.
because the history that's been taught in schools and the actual projection of the community doesn't teach them anything.
No, which is a huge problem.
So, and it's not just teaching your child the history, let your child's friends and peers also know that history too.
Yes.
It makes no sense in teaching a black child black history if the white child doesn't know black history too.
Yeah, exactly. And it comes back to your point about the teachers, and it's like, actually, who are we teaching?
Yeah.
Because many of us do know our history, and that's something that we're taught ourselves by family, close friends, and actually this is the history that needs to be kind of shared.
Yeah, I know. I think most of the time, even if when we do know our history,
Mm.
the narrative in community and in establishments changes, and they brainwash black people into a white narrative all the time.
Yes.
So it makes it more difficult for them to exist as a black person in a white community. So
Yes, definitely.
they try to be semi-white all the time, or behave like to be accepted into, instead
The
of,
idea of racial coding and kind of
yeah,
toning down aspects of their personality to maybe conform with what is
yeah,
accepted.
yes. And also they try to make it as if the white narrative is the right narrative all the
Yeah.
time.
I mean, yeah, and what's really scary about that is actually it becomes a really subconscious thing, and then you find kids or even young adults going into establishments, and they, maybe not without even consciously thinking, will tone down or change or alter certain aspects that they think are going to be offensive to their white employer or their white colleague.
That's what happens all the time.
Yeah.
That's why that's the problem when you have black teachers in the state schools now.
Mm.
If they have to conform or they'll be ostracized.
Was that something you faced as a teacher yourself?
Oh, I had massive fights all through my career.
As
Massive.
in, yeah, with kind of the higher authorities and the way that you were teaching kids?
The higher authorities within the school system. I was brought up on disciplinary numerous amount of times,
Wow.
and fortunately, I mean, I'm a very strong individual, and not only being strong, but also being corporate articulate.
Yeah. But I think
That's
that's a huge problem when blackness meets articulate. For
Yeah,
them, they can't compute that, and that's a huge issue. In that people actually, that causes other problems. Then you're actually in another level of intimidating for them.
absolutely, and that's where the problem starts. So, coming from that background myself, I used to teach my daughter this, right?
Yeah.
I call it the 5 minute argument.
Amazing. Tell me.
We have a debate every Sunday from she was quite young,
Yeah.
5 minutes on different points, could be anything.
Wow. Okay.
So we argued and debated it. And at the end of the 5 minutes, I would say, no, you won, I won, you won. And I would tell her how to win an argument, how to win a
Right.
debate. So she became very skilled in arguing.
Uh-oh.
Very, very skilled. Yeah, it's very difficult. She's a lot, she's looking to be a lawyer, and she's very, very skilled in
Wow. Good for
debating,
her. Yeah.
in articulating herself, in putting her points over. So from that point of view, when I ever go into meetings and I listen to them, argue about issues,
Yeah.
which buttons to press.
I understand. I understand. And if we go back and we revisit kind of your daughter's education, would you ever consider homeschooling your daughter in order to kind of remove those problems that she's experiencing in school?
No,
No.
no,
Okay.
no. One, I don't have the time.
Yeah.
Two, I'd like to keep the parent-daughter relationship and not make it the teacher
Sure, yeah, and blur that line. I understand that.
that line. And three, I'd like to also give her the environment to be naughty
Yeah, I understand that. I
to grow
understand.
up. So I'd rather somebody else teach her.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would teach as well. You know, parents, we should always teach, but
Yes.
not in the formal way. I would teach things that are not considered to that should be skilled at. You know, things like banking, things, you know, economy, you know,
Yeah.
environment, you know, general issues that cultural issues, you know,
Yeah.
history as it should be told, and how to question things. You know, now, I
Yeah.
tell my daughter there's two important subjects in this world: history and geography.
Yeah. You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
And I said, you know, if you know your history and you know your geography, you'll know why the problems are in this world.
Yeah. And if you think about actually maybe broader than your daughter, but if you think about kind of black young girls growing up in the education system, what would you say are the specific issues that young black women face if you were to kind of like spotlight certain issues?
But the issues that black women face in schools, right? One is of their own identity,
Okay.
you know, and I had a long debate with my school about black girls and their hair and swimming.
Right. No, I mean it's laughable, but these are the issues that are keep cropping up.
And one of the teachers asking, why does she have to fix her hair, spend so much time and all that, you know?
Yeah.
I just, you know, I, you know, sometimes whenever you want to win an argument,
Yeah.
you have to listen to what's been said to you
Right.
thoroughly,
Yeah.
and then take what's been said, put it in another box,
Yeah. Compartmentalize it. I understand.
you know. And when they said all of that, I just asked them, right, okay, can she give me the 10 different types of hair women around the world have?
Okay. Yeah.
I said, you know, forget the black girls, but give me 10 different types of hair. And
Mm,
she's like looking at me and going, why? So I said, because you obviously don't know how to care for those 10 different types of hair.
yeah.
So if you don't know how to care for those 10 different types of hair, why are you criticizing one particular group on how they choose to care for their hair?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I twisted it around and I said, when you look at all the adverts that are on TV, how many of them care and cater for black women's hair?
Yeah. And what did you say?
Well, she couldn't think of any.
Yeah. I mean, of course.
So I said, so the real truth is you have no idea of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You're talking constructive, but you have no basis of what that constructiveness is.
Yeah. And I think that that's like one of your points then, isn't it? Really, is the fact that these people don't actually even want to engage with something that they don't understand initially. It's that kind of like uh defense, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when I was teaching, I was in a school teaching. I teach physics and PE,
Okay.
and we started off with 9 PE teachers. 7 of them were black.
Mm.
Within the 2-year period, I was the only one left. They had changed them all to Eastern Europeans.
And why do you think that was?
It's a narrative of the school.
Okay.
It's the narrative of the school, and you know, in in um in in the school, they couldn't sack me because I couldn't give them. So I didn't give them enough. I didn't give them any ammunition to sack me.
Yeah.
Okay, so they had to promote me because they couldn't sack me to get me out of each person's department to make till I got to make you know, head of year, because they couldn't, and I couldn't fit into any other compartments that they would want.
Yeah, yeah.
So, not realizing that that gave me more power than the head teachers even.
Yeah, yeah. But you're no longer a teacher.
No,
Would you say that you left teaching because of that kind of constant battle?
predominantly number one, that type of that constant battle, and also if you want to get into fortune in life, you have to climb your own ladder,
Yeah,
leaning against your own wall,
yeah,
not somebody else's. So, I had to climb a different ladder, and that's why I predominantly left. I mean, I do go around give talks to secondary school
yeah.
children now, and you know, in terms of how to progress in today's society,
Yes.
how to progress in today's lifestyle, and also the history of their functionality,
Yeah.
which is mainly very, very important. You know,
And what would you say you would like? I mean, this is kind of an idealistic question, but what would you say are the kind of main things that need to change in the British education system for you to see an education system that reflects or is deserving of your daughter?
look, I always say it like this, right? People say to me, I'm a defeatist, right?
Yeah.
The world started off as fried eggs,
Okay.
and then the Europeans came and scrambled the eggs.
Yeah.
Now we're trying to unscramble that scrambled eggs.
It's
It's
impossible.
going to be difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
Racism didn't exist until the Europeans went into Africa
Mm.
for financial gains.
Yeah.
In order for the world to change, right? In order for the world to change, Europe Europe is going to be bankrupt,
Yeah.
and turkeys don't vote for Christmas.
Yeah. No, I understand that. So
So
would you say, going back to that debate that you mentioned at the beginning of our interview, would you say that you maybe are an advocate for Black education systems in the sense that it's like, okay, I understand that this isn't working within the system that we're given, so now we're going to go and create our own one?
okay, if I broaden that a little bit, okay,
Yeah, please do. Please do.
right? 90% of the African leaders
Yeah.
go to school in Europe, into private schools and so forth, right?
Okay.
Where they were taught that level of education, a private school education, which promotes that level of whiteness, and they take that level of whiteness back into their own country
Yes.
and keep that. If they all went to school that promoted that level of blackness, they will take that back to their own country and promote that,
Yeah.
right? If we had an all black school, there would not be an identity crisis. We will have more black companies run by black people,
Yeah.
owned by black people, promoting black people.
Yeah.
There is no black company now that has 10 outlets
Right.
that are all black run.
Yeah.
We don't have that, so we're not being taught that level. So that's what we need to do. We need to have a constructive black education.
Yeah.
If you examine what happens in Africa,
Mm.
it supports the rest of the world. China, Japan, America, Europe, okay?
Mm.
They're all fighting for the resources in Africa,
Yes.
right? Because they know that's where the majority of the world's resources are from. So they're all fighting for that still.
Yeah.
Now, if Africa as a continent, the Organization of African Unity, owned those things by themselves,
Yeah.
it would be very difficult for Europe to survive.
I understand that. So you're kind of talking about it from the perspective of kind of a redistribution.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about it in terms of not so much redistribution, in terms of ownership, in terms of if Africa owned its own resources
Yeah.
and farmed it out at the rates that's how Europe has treated Africa, Europe will be poor.
Yes. No, I do understand. I do understand.
Europe will be poor, and Europe does not want to be poor.
So therefore, it's an unlikely situation we'll find ourselves in where they volunteer to kind of.
Even if Africa reclaimed that self again, Europe will find a way to destabilize. That's why there's so many wars in all these African countries.
Yeah.
Wars are not caused by the Africans. Those wars are caused by destabilizing units to
Yeah.
destabilize every aspect of Africa. There's been a war in Somalia now for eons
Yeah.
because there's more oil under Somalia than there is in the Middle East.
And if we think about kind of education, and obviously you're very kind of rich in historical knowledge, how is it that you like to share that knowledge with your daughter? Because I think we all know that there's a lack of this education and there's a lack of these narratives being shared in the school system.
Okay, there's two things that we need to bring forward, right?
Yeah.
One is how Black parents parent their children.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm going to be critical of the Black parents now
Right.
because 95% of Black parents are parenting their child under slave mentality parenting.
Okay. Maybe can you build upon that idea?
I did a talk about should you beat your children.
Okay.
95% of the parents said yes, we should beat them, and that's what we've been growing up on. And I told them no, that's a slave mentality.
Yeah.
You beat children to bring that. I said, if you went into work and you did something wrong and your boss slapped you and said, do it right, would you accept that?
No.
No. So why do you think you have the right to that to your child?
Yeah.
So if we spend the time talking to our children, okay, having that level of conversation, bringing their thoughts, not forget that they're individual children with their own individual brains, bringing their thoughts to the fold, there'll be a much better growth in their lifestyle, much better communication,
Yes.
much better understanding. I realized that when sometimes my daughter's friends would come and want to come and talk to me rather than talk to their parents
Okay.
because they feel they can't talk to their parents about things.
So there's a kind of a communication barrier there.
There is a massive communication barrier because I'm not from the West Indies, but there's this whole West Indies thing, children should be seen and not heard.
Mm.
So when should they be heard?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. What point does it come to?
So that's where if we start rebranding our parenting style,
Yeah.
we can rebrand our lifestyle.
Okay, yeah.
That's why 95% of the children are on social media because they can go and do their expression there.
Yeah.
Instead of expressing it to their, expressing their thoughts to their parents, So there's the issue of one, rebranding what we do as parents in terms of bringing up our children. Two, giving our children the level of education that's required
Yes.
for them to develop and creating an environment for them to grow.
I mean, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree.
Sometimes, my daughter would ask me things, right? And I think that's where parenting becomes difficult. Sometimes she would ask you things. If you don't know, you're not less of a parent if you say, I don't know.
Yes.
Instead of giving them a crap answer to satisfy your own ego, just, I don't know. We can't know everything.
No.
But, what you can do is find out somebody who does.
Exactly.
And hence, I've just finished writing this book, right? 31 Days to Change Your Life.
Okay.
And it's a kind of different self-empowering book.
Yeah.
because it's just got different sayings and breaking those sayings down.
Nice. Nice.
Simple to follow, simple things. It's not how intelligent you are as a person that's important. It's how intelligent the process you use.
Okay.
So we don't have to be intelligent, as long as we have an intelligent process. I don't know how to split an atom, but I can find a man who can.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes we as parents think that we have to be able to split an atom, I'm useless at DIY.
So is my dad.
Absolutely useless. And I don't feel no shame in admitting I can't do it,
Yeah.
because I can't be skilled at everything.
Yeah.
So it's important that we have those things loud and clear.
And I think what you just said is a really important point about vulnerability, and that idea of like being vulnerable doesn't reduce your identity, whether you are a parent or whether you are in any role. But I think vulnerability, and going back to this point about blackness, I think vulnerability and blackness is often told that it can't coexist. And I think that's also a huge, huge issue.
Yeah. And, you know, I was talking to my daughter the other day, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about relationships and so forth.
Yeah.
And she happened to mention four of her best friends who were black.
Yeah.
All their dads are dysfunctional,
Okay.
and she's wondering where is she going to marry somebody
Mm.
who is going to suit, if that's the thing that presented herself in terms of black men.
Your daughter sounds very beyond her years.
Uh, well, we talk about a lot of things all the time.
And talking about that conversation though, what was the kind of conclusion of that conversation, or how did you approach that conversation?
I said to her, there's a father somewhere in another part of England, like me, who's bringing up a son, like how I'm bringing up you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, you will gravitate to that when it comes.
Mm.
So you don't have to worry about what to look for, because when the time comes, that will find you.
Yeah.
But she says she worries because all the boys that she knows that are black
Mm.
are useless in her mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just said to her, it's not that they're useless. You just have to change the circle in which you're looking in. You can't find a Harrods person shopping in Lidl's.
And kind of going beyond relationships, like what would, obviously it sounds like you're a very close relationship with your daughter. What would you say that you sense are the anxiety she faces as a young black woman in this world?
The, most identity.
Okay, and is that identity when she leaves the house, or is that an identity kind of?
It's not so much when she leaves that when she's at home, she's fine, she's cool. But the identity is not that she has any identity problem herself. She often asks, is she not normal?
Oh, that breaks my heart. That actually really breaks my heart.
That's because all her friends don't share that same thing.
Okay.
And I said to her, I can't help how other people bring up their children.
Yeah.
I can't help it because, I've never taught her to go hang around in the streets.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of her friends want to do.
Okay.
The places that she wants to go to, they don't want to go to.
And I think this is something that maybe relates to my own experiences. But I think also is that as a young black woman, black man growing up, we're not shown in the media a nuanced vision of blackness. Blackness is always one thing. So then when you realize that you sit outside of that, it actually takes a very long time to kind of understand that maybe your interest in comic books or maybe your interest in these things still allows you to be a black person,
Yeah.
thriving in society, but it's about kind of finding those spaces. And I think that's actually also kind of goes back to the education system, and that they're told that they don't belong in those spaces.
Yeah, I mean, when we listen to the news and the black lawyer, the barrister,
Mm,
got mistaken for
a
for a
defendant.
defendant 3 times.
Yeah.
She's going, wow. So I said to her, and I said, and I explained something to her, and I think that's something that the whole of the black community has to really understand. 95% of the public who behave in their mind in a racist attitude
Yes.
have been programmed to do that by the 5% who are in power.
Yeah.
Because for me, what they're behaving is not racism,
Yeah.
it's ignorance.
I agree. Yeah.
Because for me, the real cause of racism means the subjugation of power of one race over another over financial means.
Okay.
95% of them don't have any power over you, but they feel that they do.
Yeah. Which is also a way in which they're being controlled, and also a way in which kind of white patriarchal society is allowed to continue.
Yeah, they feel they are. Racism will stop existing when when you want to transfer money from one country in Africa to another, you have to bring it to a European bank to do that, so they get their money anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where racism is, that financial control. So when that financial control stops, all this will stop. And when I say to her, those people are, there's a bit, I have to explain to her the difference between being prejudiced and being racist.
Okay. Yeah.
95% of the white narrative now mixes that two together all the time to
Yeah.
make it easier for them to live. Somebody calling you names and things like that, that's rubbish.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you go for a job interview and you don't get it because over a white person,
Mm.
that's racism, because that's a financial power they're exerting.
And how would you say, do you parent a child in an age of kind of, well, particularly now with the Black Lives Matter protests going on and this real kind of boost in transparency? How do you raise a child to be optimistic and hopeful for a future that they deserve? You said your child wants to be a lawyer. How do
Yeah.
you push them and make them strive to do so in a way that they are optimistic in the current climate, which is increasingly negative?
I tell them that sometimes the issue of black subjugation is
Yeah.
like walking up a hill.
Yeah.
I said, anytime somebody walks up a hill, they have to come back down again.
Right.
So if we struggle to get all the way up, and I said, for me, I said that, my generation, we're probably about a quarter way up, and your generation will probably take it halfway up, and next generation will take it to the next level up, and then when you reach the top, the next generation is going to come all the way back down, when it's going to be a lot more easier. So there's always the hope of something happens that will make it a little bit better, a little bit understanding. I said, look at something like what's happened recently. I said, before, the whole of the British public did not realize all those people who they were immortalizing and idolizing were slave traders and owners of slaves and got their wealth from slaves. Now
Yeah.
they do know.
Yeah. Now they know, and it can't be hidden.
They can't be hidden. And then comes how they deal with that knowledge that they know.
Yeah.
Are they going to accept it? Are they going to try and ring fence it around? I mean, the classic example I said to her, the struggle is, I said, look at Winston Churchill,
Yeah.
because he's your classic example of when you know the times will change.
Yeah.
He's idolized here in England as this great savior, when in fact he was one of the most racist people on the planet.
Yeah.
But the British hold him in that high esteem.
Yeah.
When you start looking, then look through your history books and look at how many other black people are in that same, and but they never get held. I said, I said, you look at Meghan Markle,
I
you
mean,
know.
yeah, that's a classic
Well, it goes
example.
beyond before that because there's Queen Charlotte,
Yeah,
who was a black queen in England.
yeah,
She's been wiped off the history books because she was a black queen.
yeah,
So I said, they need to just know the history of all these things, of all the pioneers, of all the things that we have done to this environment, to this community, you know.
yeah.
And I just told her to look at things for what they are, and then make up their own mind. When I criticized the Windrush generation,
Mm,
she went, so I said, no, I'm criticizing them because England put so many of them in slaves.
mm,
They dumped them in Jamaica, in the
mm.
West Indies, and then they went there and picked the best and educated ones out of them to come and help build up England. And they're jumping for joy to come and do that instead of building up their own country. And that's what we failed to be doing. We were
Yeah.
co-hosting coming to England,
Mm,
come and build their own flagging country. And they didn't bring all the rubbish ones. They brought all the educated ones.
yeah.
And they still came here and faced the level of racism that they were facing, level of prejudice, the level of everything, instead of sitting there just to build up their own country. Just imagine if all those people that came here stayed and fixed up Jamaica. Where would Jamaica be now?
Yeah. I mean, that's a hypothetical situation which we won't know.
Well, we won't know, but that's why I just said think of what would happen if they had, because that was the brain drain in Jamaica, the
Yeah,
drain
yeah,
in the West Indies. The brain, they're quite good at doing that, you know. And I told her to look at, when I tell her to look at history and look at how it goes,
yeah.
I said 30,000 doctors leave Africa every year to come and work, to come to Europe.
And if we think though now about like pooling our resources together, which is something that I think is coming out in the point that you're making, um, how do you think is the best way to move forward as a Black British community to ensure that um, kids are educated in a way which allows them to thrive in society?
Number one, which is one thing that we use it and we use it glibly, yeah. Definitions of language is important.
Okay.
Language means brainwashing. When you look at the forms, yeah, your immigration forms, your any kind of forms you want to fill in,
Mm,
where do you see a color for any other ethnic group?
yeah.
We don't.
No.
But yet you will see Black British, Black African, you know,
Yeah.
but you don't see white Irish, white Jew. You don't see, they don't put it like that.
No.
So we have to start using the right language to create that right brainwashing environment, because everything that they've done so far
Yeah.
has been what I call subtle brainwashing all the time.
Yeah. Of course. Of course.
So we have to redress that. We have to turn that around to make it more an acceptable language to use, to ensure that we have the right brain power exerting ourselves. Because, why should we be called Black British?
Yeah.
You know, you're either British or you're not,
Yeah.
you know. And if they want to do, anytime you look at the language, whenever they talk about Africa or anywhere in Africa, if they talk about one country, they say Africa.
Mm,
There's 54 countries.
yeah. I know. I know. It's insane.
And
It's
they
insane.
never say, look at Europe. They call us Spain, the French, the Italian, the
Yeah.
Croatian, but yet they lump everybody together. Whenever you start looking at race as your narrative for description, it gives you the issue of power over that race.
Yeah.
So we have to break that down to make it more palatable for children to understand, so children can children don't lose sight of their own history.
No, definitely not.
You
And kind
know,
of like, as a last kind of point, what would you say? What do you look? What would you say is how you kind of view your child's future and education system?
um, with the education system in England is a means to an end that needs a lot of support.
Right. Yeah.
You know, when you look at it, you know, I will go back to a statement that was made by Malcolm X. Yeah,
Please do. Please do.
yeah. You can't let your enemy train your children
Yeah.
on in I can't quote the exact words, but you can't let your enemy educate your children in terms of their future,
Yeah.
right? So all the education that they're getting in England is to make England better. Is to,
Exactly. Yeah.
is to
Yeah.
make is to make Europe better, you
Mm,
know.
yeah.
And the first education systems came from Africa. They've stolen everything that's from there and remodeled it to suit them.
Yeah.
So if parents want to make sure that their children have a fulfillment in education,
Yeah.
number one, they have to take more notice of what their children has been taught.
Yeah. Greater understanding, more transparency, more involvement.
And that means the parents themselves have to do a little bit more communicating with their children. When their children come from school, they need to be asking them, what did you learn today? What have you done? What is, so they have that understanding of what's been fed into their children.
Yeah.
Just as, you know, we have cultural development, right? Now, I I get to know or get to understand women are the fabric of our society.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we train the women well, the society will grow because women raise the men.
Yeah.
So when you look at what they eat, what the culture is, what the arts are, all the fabrics of what makes that society, we don't have. We don't invest.
Yeah.
And we need to start investing in those things. You know, when I was at school, why they used to really have big arguments with me, I used to ask the class, what did they have for their dinner? For the
Yeah.
7 days a week, what do you eat? Because the school was predominantly, they had a lot of black students in it, and Africans and lots of Caribbean students in it.
Yeah.
All of them were fed on pizzas and spaghetti bolognese.
Mm.
And I'm asking them, what about your own cultural foods?
Yeah.
What culturally? How do you grow? What is your culture? What is your nature when you grow up? When you start cooking, that's been lost.
Mm.
So that's the subtle way. When you look at school dinners over here, school dinners don't represent what the children of that schools are.
No.
So those are all subtle way of brainwashing your children, not only education of their palates and so forth. So that means they could sell more products to them as they grow older because they're producing what's needed for them when they grow older.